And then I get a message from Rebecca that Charlie Sheen wants to ask you out. I was like, me? Really? And I was in shock because of, again, what I just told you. So he asked me out and he said, would you please call me? And I had a lot of friends at the time telling me, no, don't you dare call Charlie Sheen. No way. But my mother, and she was like, yeah, call Charlie Sheen. Oh my God, Charlie Sheen. And so I did. And then I can't remember where we went for our first date, but it was one of those. He was such a gentleman, pulled out your chair, opened the car door for you, didn't try to be cool.
Welcome to the Hollywood Raw YouTube page, guys. We're happy to have you here. Make sure you like, subscribe, leave us comments, do all the stuff.
What are you waiting for? Let's go. I got a drug addiction to feed.
Welcome to the Hollywood Raw podcast. I'm Dax Holt. Over there is Adam Glenn. Today we have a phenomenal podcast for you. We've got on a big guest, Brooke Mueller, Charlie Sheen's ex-wife, someone who I am being told has not sat down for an interview in years and years and years. And she has granted us the first exclusive interview, which is pretty awesome. I mean, whenever we get these first exclusive interviews, I love it. I think it's just so cool to be, because, you know, half the time you're like, okay, what are we going to ask the person? And I feel like when we get the first interview, it's kind of like we get to ask whatever we want. It hasn't been asked in another interview. We're not duplicating questions. We just get to have a good time and ask whatever we want. And I am very excited to have her on. Adam, what are you most interested in asking Brooke?
Well, I just want to, obviously, I want to get into the Charlie Sheen, what's it like being married to a guy like that, especially through the ups and downs and hearing her side going through the tabloids. One thing, do you want to get into this, Dax? One thing we had to agree to not get into regarding this interview?
Yeah, I mean, well, legally, like we legally cannot ask. It's not that she doesn't want to talk about it. We legally cannot ask about, we can't talk about the Friends star who recently passed away and the connection there. So we are not avoiding it. I'm sorry, not being dumb and not asking it. It's that we legally cannot. And so there won't be any of those questions today during the podcast, but we have so many more lined up. I mean, between her days with Charlie Sheen and everything that went down afterwards, what it was like being connected to Charlie during his wild days and the tiger blood and the machete. And, you know, I guess we could ask about his health status. I mean, I feel like there's so much to ask this woman about her life, because she's had a lot of ups and downs, and you know,
this is someone we kind of worked with over the years. I wouldn't say work with, but we covered back in the TMZ days. I mean, this was just so much going on. Her and Charlie took over the news cycle for a long period of time, and we didn't really know who she was. We didn't know her story. And when we kind of got Brooke to come on the podcast, started looking up her story, and it is a pretty unique story. You know, you don't hear her do interviews. It's the first time she's spoken in a long time. So I'm excited to talk to her. But before we talk to Brooke, we're going to talk to you. We're going to talk directly to you. We're going to tell you how much we love your reviews. We love them so much. We read them live on the air. Dax, do you have a review ready for us?
I got one. All right. This one I just pulled up. All right. This one is from KFG22. It is a 5-star review. Says, Friday top 10, KG from Indiana. Fridays always start off great with your top 10. Adam, your celebrity knowledge is impressive. And Dax, you definitely have the gift of gab. Thanks for sharing your stories and perspectives on things happening in Hollywood. Thanks, KFG, or KG from KFG. Indiana. And if this is your nice. I was gonna say, if this is your first time listening to the podcast, because the name Brooke Mueller is bringing you in, or the name Charlie Sheen has brought you in for the first time. Wednesday we do normally an interview, or maybe Adam and I talk. We get celebrities on. We get people that are adjacent to celebrities, whether it's a bodyguard. We've had Kim Kardashian's bodyguard. We've had Justin Bieber's bodyguard on. We've had private flight attendants on to talk about like what celebrities order on these planes. We've had chefs, we've had paparazzi. We kind of have a little bit of everything. And so that's a Wednesday episode. And then our Fridays for all those people that love entertainment news, but don't have time to go out and read all the blogs and read the magazines. We give you the top 10 stories of the week on Friday to get you going into the weekend and have you know everything that's happening. So that is the Hollywood Raw. If this is your first time, welcome.
Welcome. And you picked, if you're first time, you picked a good episode to listen because we have a very unique, interesting, and fun guest. Dax, tell us about our guest today.
Yeah, so we've got Brooke Mueller on. Obviously, I would say her biggest credit that most people know her as is the ex-wife of Charlie Sheen. They have 2 children together, Bob and Max, and that, she came up in this industry as a host, as an actress, and then met the biggest television star on the planet and got married. And a lot of people know their story, but now we get to hear it firsthand from the woman herself. Brooke, thanks for joining us. I'm so excited to have you on. Adam and I have been talking about potential of having you on for the last 2 weeks and just what we're going to talk about. You are such a household name. I mean, obviously having been married to Charlie Sheen, and we're just excited. We found out that this is actually your first interview in a very, very long time. When was the last time you did an interview?
I would say I haven't done an interview in, the kids are 15. So it was right after they were born. So 15 years.
Wow. Well, we are very honored that you would stop by the Hollywood Raw podcast to chat with us and appreciate your time. I want to jump back into the beginning of Brooke's life and kind of, I don't know, how did you get into Hollywood? You had a bunch of acting credits. Kind of tell us how you landed in Hollywood.
Okay, well, I was living in Palm Beach, Florida, and I went to Pepperdine University for theater and visual arts. And after about a year at Pepperdine, I booked my first film. And it was one of these low budget, straight to video horror films. It was called The Witch House. And that started my acting career. So that was when I was, I think, 18 or 19. And then I was trying to get gigs, and I would get very far, or I'd get hired and then not show up to set because I wasn't really responsible. I started partying around that time as well. And I was new to partying in the Hollywood scene, so I didn't take it as seriously as I probably should have. And so it wasn't too soon after that I decided that maybe it wasn't for me acting, but maybe hosting. And so then I hosted, or I was the on-air talent for Extra. The TV show Extra.
Oh, that's how I got my start. Both of us. I've got my start in Extra. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like one of their special correspondents. And so I did that, which was fantastic for about a couple of years. And then I did a show with Paris. And that's kind of the career. And then once I ended the show with Paris, I ended up moving to Utah for a while and trying to get out of the spotlight, actually. There was a lot of media crazy at that time between myself, Charlie, and Denise. And I had just lost my kids to the government, and that was a big trauma for me. And then after that, and all the media coverage and the news around that, I decided that maybe Hollywood wasn't for me. So I moved the boys and I to Sundance, Utah, and then to Park City, Utah, where we were out of LA for several years.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like that was, looking back, I got to imagine that was a great move. I mean, getting the kids away from the craziness of Hollywood, the craziness of paparazzi, all of that. Do you look back at it as a really positive experience getting out of Hollywood?
Absolutely. I ended up getting a few years sober over there in Park City. And I went to this fantastic treatment center called Cirque Lodge in Sundance. And then, yeah, it was amazing. I had a fantastic schedule, fantastic friends, great meetings. I was really involved in AA there. And I was always a snowboarder because I'm an athlete, of course, when I'm sober. And I'm a tennis player and a big snowboarder. I started when I was really young. My family had a place in Colorado. And so I started there. And then when I moved to Park City, I would snowboard all the time. So I became, pretty skilled. Lots of hard work in snowboarding. And it was fantastic for the kids.
Yeah.
That was, forget about me. It was great for me. The nature and getting in, like I said, they had great AA meetings. So between the exercise and the nature and the AA meetings, it was fantastic for me. But then for the boys, they got to be in this tiny little elementary school, no paparazzi, just, wholesome folk. And we got to have a normal life for a while. We didn't get photographed one time there.
Yeah, we say that all the time. We're like, if you don't want to be photographed, there are places where people can go that will not get photographed. I love how open you are about your sobriety and your journey through sobriety. Is that something that it sounds like you wear it as a badge of pride. Where does everything stand right now? How long have you been sober? How has that journey been for you?
Thank you for asking. And I do. It's been hard. And a lot of people at my level of addiction don't make it. In fact, most people don't. So I worked really hard. It has not been easy. I am sober. I do work a program. I do believe in the 12 steps. I have a fantastic sober community here in Malibu of some great women and set meetings that I go to. And to answer your question, I have 9 months sober. Well, next week will be 9 months.
Brooke, this is a random question, but I hear all these celebrities go to rehab. I'm on the East Coast, and I know people that have had substance problems and they abuse some sort of narcotics of some sort. But when you hear celebrities going out to these rehab facilities, does insurance cover that?
Okay, so you have three types of facilities out there, right? You have your state-funded ones where anybody can go to. Then you have your insurance-based rehabs. So as long as you have insurance, you can go there. And then you have your private pay, cash pay, they call it. And they're all very different. Your experiences there are going to be different. Your comforts there are going to be different, and so forth.
So how much did it cost you? Did you go the private one or?
If you want to know how much it cost me since my first rehab at 19 or 20 to my 30th rehab at 47, it's in the millions. And it's no exaggeration because unfortunately, I thought you had to go to these rehabs that cost anywhere from $75 to $140 a month to get sober. And in fact, this last time I went to an insurance only place and they did not cater to me. They did not enable me. They did not care who I could have been or anything like that. Excuse me, my Apple Watch. So they, what was fantastic about that experience is it was real, it was raw, and it woke me up. It really did.
I was going to ask, what made it different? That's really interesting because you as an outsider, you think, oh, the more expensive, the better, but that clearly is not necessarily the case.
No, I think when you're ready to get sober and you've hit that bottom, I think you can get sober at the very bougie ones or even the state-funded ones. But I think for me in particular, my experiences with treatment centers and maybe being enabled sometimes, catered to as long as you're paying, $60,000 to $140,000 a month. Not all places, but a lot of places will allow you to continue behaviors that are detrimental to recovery or get away with bad behavior that other treatment centers would give you the boot for. And so I think you have that, but there are expensive, credible places too that would give you the boot anyway, but there's a lot that aren't.
Brooke, when you were coming up in Hollywood, was everyone just partying, like with some sort of, beyond drinking, maybe doing something? Like how present was it around Hollywood in the party scene back when you were going out?
So for me, it was everywhere because that's who I chose to hang around with. You know how they say water seeks its own level. So if I'm going out partying with my crew, we're all going to be partying, or probably be a different crew. So I started in 1995. Actually, I took 1995, and I started going to, do you guys remember? Oh, you're too young, but there was a place called Bar One, and it was all these places back then. And cocaine was really big. And, it starts off with the glitz and the glamour and the jet setting, or, doing some lines on set, or drinking or jet setting and going to Vegas for a weekend. So it started off in that kind of rock and roll lifestyle. It certainly didn't end that way, but yeah, a lot of people were. Sobriety wasn't as popular and as big as it is now.
Yeah,
it still was around.
100% agree. I was going to say, what is your relationship with your children been like? Because obviously there's been ups and downs. Where does it stand now? I saw a photo of you and your boys out at your birthday dinner or birthday lunch. How has that affected their childhood, and how are you guys doing now?
I love that question, and thank you for asking it. My kids live with me full time, but Charlie and I are neighbors. And so we talk daily, oftentimes multiple times a day. He comes over a lot. We go over there. So we have a fantastic relationship, and we have this pretty unique modern family over here where Charlie and I both live. And my kids are great. When they were younger and they were going through the time when they were taken from me and put in Denise's care and then came back to me, and all the chaos and everything they had to go through, they were not okay. In fact, it's one of the reasons why I moved to Utah, because there was a great neuropsychiatric program there, because they were really traumatized. They were very much affected. And I spent several years with fantastic coaches and therapists, and I had every testing done. And it turns out there was nothing organically wrong with them whatsoever. They had just seen and been through too much. And then over time, especially with those years I got sober in Utah, that we had time to get some structure and consistency, stability, and they broke through any of their behaviors that were concerning. Completely mainstreamed. One kid skipped a class. Right now, they are, I gotta tell you, they're incredible kids.
I was gonna say, does Denise Richards also live in the same community as you guys?
No, Denise and I used to live in the same community not too long ago. And then I moved from there into this community with Charlie.
But you get along really well with Denise?
Denise and I get along very, very well.
Was it always good, or did she come in and help you out? Like, how did that relationship?
It was not always good.
Was there? And why wasn't it always so good, and how did it change?
But you know what? The reason why our relationship wasn't good, it didn't have to do with Denise. It was my addiction. And that's why all these relationships I've had with Denise or Charlie or my mother or anyone, they're great when I'm sober, but then you can sully it all up, unfortunately. And this is the devastating thing about addiction, is that it affects everybody, not just the addict. And, I was a nightmare, really a nightmare. It's like I have that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing. So it really wasn't anything she did. She actually did step up and tried to step up and was very helpful. In fact, she was really helpful with me recently too, last year.
So what is like Christmas time look like? Are you guys all in the same house together? Do you do separate Christmases or holidays? Maybe I shouldn't even ask Christmas, but holidays in general. Like, what do you guys do?
So usually during the holidays, Denise is with her family, Charlie's with his family, and I'm with my family. So I'll be with my brother and my sister and my mother. And typically the kids would be with me. So last year, I believe, no, it wasn't last year. That was in, right. So last year was actually the time when it wasn't a good time for me. So last year, I can't give you a good example. But I believe the year before I was in Aspen with the kids. Birthdays, what?
I'm always fascinated with how that works with families when there's divorce, but there's multiple sets of children. Like I just think it's always interesting how people make that work out in that modern family style situation.
We have such a modern family. It's really actually fantastic. And then, so the boys, my Sam and Lola, Bob and Max are friends. I saw Lola the other night. Like I said, Bob and I are both on Denise's show, and Charlie and I are neighbors.
Brooke, I'm just so curious. When you're in a relationship with Charlie Sheen, here you are. At the time, I'm going into the beginning part of the relationship. He's one of the biggest stars in the world. You're going out with this guy. He's rich. He's he's not even rich. He's wealthy. He's famous. Comes from a long family. Families. Everyone's famous around him. Where does he take you on the first date? Okay. How does he impress you?
Well, this is an interesting story. How we met is we met at Brett Ratner's house. And I remember Rebecca Gayheart was my best friend at the time. And Brett had this rule that nobody can wear heels at the party. So you had to come in, you had to take off. So all of us shorties, right, that wear our nice heels so we can look tall. And I first have to tell you, this was a Victoria's Secret model party. So these models are already, 6'5", 10", so on, and stunning. And then here we are. They got to wear their heels, but us coming in, we couldn't. So now these gorgeous models that are even taller with their heels, now all of us are in here. We're like, all right, forget about this. We're hoping to meet some, hot guys. At the time, I was really impressed with actors because I wanted to be an actress myself. And I was in my early 20s and very impressed. What's the word? Impressionable. Yeah. Yep. And so so it's the funniest story. So I'm walking around in my flats and I'm like, okay, whatever. And then I get a message from Rebecca that Charlie Sheen wants to ask you out. I was like, me? Really? And I was in shock because of, again, what I just told you. So he asked me out and he said, would you please call me? And I had a lot of friends at the time telling me, no, don't you dare call Charlie Sheen. No way. But my mother, and she was like, yeah, call Charlie Sheen. Oh my God, Charlie Sheen. And so I did. And then I can't remember where we went for our first date, but it was one of those. He was such a gentleman, pulled out your chair, opened the car door for you, didn't try to be cool, but he's so charming. And when he looks at you, it's like you're the only person in the world. And it's got that eye contact and that true connection that you really can't fabricate. And so it's easy to fall for him.
I was going to say, I've heard some unbelievable stories about how generous Charlie has been to friends and family and coworkers, just about basically everyone that's come into his life. What was the most lavish gift that Charlie Sheen ever gave you?
Okay, I was spoiled. I don't have any of it now, thanks to addiction. But I will tell you that our engagement ring.
Yeah.
The second one he gave me, which I think in People magazine, they did the first engagement ring, but the second one was, 4 or 5 times. Just an insane number that I don't really need to share with you, but it was my engagement ring. We traded that one in, and then at the time. And I wasn't expecting or wanting something that lavish, but he got conned or talked into it by the jewelry guy. So, if you want to get her a flawless this, that, then go with this. So yeah, incredibly expensive.
Interesting. I was going to ask you, you guys sound so close. Is it like, it's interesting. It almost sounds like you're in a relationship, but you're not.
That's what it feels like.
Is it at a point where you guys are cool with watching each other date other people? Is that hard because you know that you guys don't work out together? I'm curious how that aspect works.
He was very friendly and appreciated and thanked often my ex. And I was with Will for about 3 years. And that
was Will an actor?
No, Will was a fantastic athlete. And I think Charlie, and he almost went pro for baseball. And Charlie at one point was considering going pro for baseball. So they would throw the ball together and Charlie would come over and visit us. And that was fantastic. So no, there was nothing between Charlie and I where if he dated somebody, I would feel strange about it. Or if I dated somebody, he would feel strange about it. In fact, he once dated a friend of mine, Julia Stambler, for about 3 years or 2 to 3 years. They dated after he and I, several years after he and I divorced. And there was nothing yucky with all of that. But I think now it's been so long, Charlie and I have gotten tighter as the years have progressed. So in the last year, Charlie hasn't dated anyone and I haven't dated anyone. So it'd be hard to know if there would be any jealousy, but I think we would both be okay with it.
Is Charlie the first, was Charlie the first big star that you dated? Were you in a relationship with any other stars in the past before that or even after Charlie?
Well, I mean, I think I briefly, dated Owen Wilson when I was really young. We had like an Aspen fling. Then there's a couple others that I probably shouldn't kiss and tell. but I would say he's the first serious, like real serious relationship of somebody of that magnitude of stardom. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you brought up the divorce, obviously, with him a couple times. Being in such a high-profile relationship and such a high-profile divorce, how does that take a toll on you when the world knows the financial settlements? They know the numbers that, he's paying. The media was able to get out so much information regarding your guys' separation. How does that feel as a person on the other side, that the numbers are now being exposed to the world?
It's unfortunate, really, because that's what really devastated our relationship for so many years. And it took a lot of years for us to get back. What happened is you have a lot of people who are self-serving in those situations. And they look at the money and they say, okay, how do I get out of this? So it behooved his attorneys and it behooved my attorneys for us not to have this amicable settlement with trust and love and healing. It was, be careful, she's going to try and do that. And he's doing that because he doesn't want you to get, and they put this fear. It's like this fear campaign from both sides. And all of a sudden they're making you and they're making him look like monsters. And that, not only does divorce bring out the ugly anyway, but then you have all these self-serving people who benefit from a fight and destruction.
Brooke, it's funny. In the past the past few days, we hear about the Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck getting divorced, and for so long there's just so much speculation of what's going on. And my, Daxmer was saying like the media, the public didn't really help out with this relationship. We made it harder for them. And I was wondering, like, when you Charlie were going through it during the tough times and leading up to eventually what became a divorce. Did you find anybody in your internal circle that became a source to the media? You're like, oh my God, you're the one leaking information?
There is somebody that I found out recently in this last year that I was friends with since I was 17 years old. that I found out has been conning me this whole time. And, or not the whole time, but on and off for a good portion of it. And I was completely manipulated by this person. And so was my family. So was Charlie. And looking back now, absolutely, there were people, I have a lot of arrests, and I kept wondering, how come I keep getting arrested for possession of this? And how do they know I'm here? And how does this not? Yet all these people keep using and doing, and they never get in trouble. No one's knocking down their door saying, "Here, I hear you have cocaine in this hotel room." It was just, and I kept thinking I had bad luck. And I did find out that quite a few people, and it's interesting, some of these people also end up extorting you down the road too.
Is that what happened to you?
I've been extorted a lot of times.
Explain like roughly how that works, because we always.
Okay. I'll give you an example. Let's say you're hanging out and you're partying with a new girl or guy, and you're doing drugs and you think this is your new best friend, and you tell them your secrets, and whatever, you party, you do drugs with them, and they're secretly recording you. They pretend to be on their iPhone, right? They pretend to be on their iPhone. They pretend to be like texting or taking photos, and the whole time they're recording you doing drugs, and then they save it. And then if there's a time you start to see that, hey, this person isn't good for me, or you no longer want this person in your life, that's when they come out you. So they use you the whole time. And then when they know they're out, that's when they say, all of a sudden you get a letter from an attorney or someone saying, if you don't, so-and-so is suing you for blah, 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 and erroneous, made up accusations. And then they have, so I guess I'm going on two different things here. So that's more of an employee, like a former employee that you let go of. I've been extorted by quite a few of them. And then they'll make up really hideous things and say, if you don't pay. And so there's that way of being extorted. Then you have the way of you acquiring these new friends. And a lot of them, not a lot, but it just takes a few, will secretly record you and then remember all your secrets and cause a lot of trouble and say, okay, if you don't give me $100,000, I'm going to release this video to the press. And now you have kids. You don't want naked photos of you or a video of you smoking crack out in the press. So you're willing to pay whatever it takes in reason.
Wow. It's honestly really sad that, everyone goes, oh, I want to be rich. I want to be famous. And I feel like there's so many things that go on behind the scenes that people don't realize happens. Case in point, something like this, where people, they know you have money, and so they want it. At the end of the day, they're trying to figure out their own way to get it. And I'm sorry that you've had to go through so many situations like that. That's really unfortunate and sad. And how do you forgive people with stuff like this in your life? Because I got to imagine, to even just be able to move forward and let go, you have to forgive. So how do you do that?
So I do think at some point you get a little numb to it. And that's sad. And at first, the injustice and the violation and the shock, it takes a while. And I think time is the answer to that question. But at first, you deal with all the anger around it. And then over time, you have no choice but to let it go. Do you ever really forgive the person? I'm not sure there's really like a true sense of forgiveness, but more for your own peace of mind, just letting it go and not letting it hold space anymore in your head.
Yeah. Well, what was it like being a part of the paparazzi crazy heyday? We always see the paparazzi crushes. We see the flashbulbs going out. We see that photos of you when you leave your neighborhood or go shopping or whatever. What is that like being on the other end of it?
You're always in fear. Especially because I battled these demons on and off for decades. You never know who's going to misinterpret something. I'll give you an example. There was paparazzi. I was taking my kids and I had just gotten them back. Or it might have been on one of the visitations I had during the reconciliation, the reunification process. And I was walking my kids in Franklin Canyon, and we had sticks, and we were playing with sticks. And I don't know which site ran something, and I know that I'm sure Steve got calls about it back then, but it was Brooke beats her kids with sticks. And so what happens is you're in fear. You're in fear that you're going to get caught, and then you're in fear that you're going to be misrepresented. And that's a lot of this journey that I've had being in the spotlight, and why I wanted to get out so badly. I felt like I ran from Hollywood, but I couldn't get away no matter how far I ran. I mean, there was a time where I didn't get photographed for 10 years, but somehow I'd still end up in the press, and they would use these old photos. And maybe I'm exaggerating by 10 years. I don't really know the exact numbers. But one of the reasons why I really wanted to get out of the spotlight is all the misrepresentation that was happening. And I felt like I was a character was put on of me, and the media just wanted that character and not the truth of me. And so they wanted to see this Hollywood bad girl married to this Hollywood bad boy, and this like Bonnie and Clyde, like quintessential hardcore bad couple in Hollywood. And so anything that would give a little bit to that storyline, they would run with it, even though it wasn't the full picture.
Interesting.
What was the wildest experience you had with paparazzi? I'm sure you'd wake up, they would be at your doorstep sometimes. I'm sure sometimes you notice them following your cars. But did you ever have some really, really insane experience dealing with them?
The biggest shock I had is when Charlie and I, in Hawaii, there was a big shock. I was going through a rough time there, and I remember I was copying drugs, and somehow they got photos of me handing money. I was in the middle of a field. I don't even know where I was, but I couldn't be further away from civilization, and somehow they were able to catch a photo of that when I didn't see anybody around me or anything. It's like they were hiding like little agents, like secret agents. And I don't know what to say, but that was, I'll tell you something funny. So this is my first experience about how clever they can get. So Charlie and I were on our honeymoon, and we are very competitive. We're both athletes, right? And we were playing ping pong. And when one of us would lose, rage would come out, I'd be like, you motherfucker. And he'd be, and I'd be like slamming the paddle or, just whatever. And of course it's all in good fun, but they had pictures, and I was scared to death they were going to have audio and video to hear what exactly it is I said during that time. But all of a sudden, we're on our honeymoon, and we read Brooke and Charlie getting a divorce on their honeymoon, big fight, playing ping pong, and we're both like, what if they heard what we said? Oh my God, this is going to be, if you could get canceled back then, we'd be canceled, And so, anyway, that's for humor. But I think, going back to part of the reasons why I wanted to leave the limelight and how devastating it was, and I know I tied Steve's hands, my publicist's hands behind his back so many times because I had so many legal issues throughout everything. So I couldn't ever defend myself. He couldn't defend me. So every story that was fed to the media from one side only, he couldn't get the truth out there because we weren't allowed to speak. I was under some probation or under some court case or something where my attorneys tied his hands, my family hands behind our back. So it didn't matter. They run stories that I did crystal meth pregnant. That's not true. I hadn't tried crystal meth till years after they were born, and that the kids have all these issues because of the drug use. Like, that's all bullshit. But we couldn't defend it because of the situation I was in. So that was also really frustrating about the paparazzi, the media, and being in the spotlight, is that you just had to close your mouth and let all these stories roll. And then they fed on each other. So all of a sudden it turned into, not to say that some of it wasn't true. I don't want to make myself sound like a victim here. There were a lot of hideous things that I did in some hideous moments and tragic moments. And so it's not that all of it was false. It's just that a lot of it was fabricated, or some of it was, certainly, and then or exaggerated.
Well, now that you can talk about it, besides the crystal meth one, is there any other stories you're like, it'd be nice just to clear it up now?
I'm sure if I had time to prepare for this, I could give you a list of about like 20 things that I would want to, like, hey guys, just in case you thought I really did that, that's not what happened. I think that using drugs all throughout my kid's pregnancy like that, and using drugs when I'm pregnant and all that is something that at the time was really hurtful. And so that one I remember really bothering me.
Brooke, one thing I really wanted to ask, because, when Charlie was having his rough time and the world was sitting there, whether they were fascinated, whether they were laughing, whatever the case was, Charlie definitely had his moment. What was that moment like for you, with the tiger blood and the machetes and the goddesses? What was that like, being on the other side of someone who knew him?
So we were all more concerned. That was actually during a time where I think there was a couple of years there when I was doing really well. And I think it was really hard. And I don't know if it was shortly as he started that whole thing. So I don't really know the timing of it all or remember exactly, but I remember we were all more concerned. We were really concerned. We knew something was going on. We didn't know quite what. We knew these terrible people were around him, and we couldn't get in because he had only them around. So we don't know what they were giving him. All these people were profiting off of him going crazy. And so they were saying, forget about 2.5 Men, go down this road. You should be a one-man show. And whatever it is that they were putting into his ear, it was sad because, he couldn't, I don't think at that time he was very capable of making the correct decisions. And it was hard to see that happen to the father of your kids and someone you really care about.
Well, you get to spend a lot of time with Charlie. You get to be, that right-hand person for him. How is Charlie's health? How is he doing mentally, physically, all of that?
Charlie's doing as good as he was doing when we first met. He looks incredible, better than I've seen him in years. He is in great shape. And he's, like I said, a great father and a great friend. And he's been very supportive to me during these times, these last years, when it's been very trying for me.
Yeah, I love to hear that he's doing so well. I think people love, honestly, listen, let's be realistic. The world loves when someone falls from grace, but I think what people love more is a comeback or a picking yourself up in a feel-good story. And so I like hearing that he's doing so well.
Yeah.
Brooke, someone like you, and I'm just curious how the world works. Here you are, you have a name, people could Google you and they see things that come up. So for you, how do you what's your main source of revenue for you to kind of live, and when you do look for work, people I'm sure Google you, and does that affect you getting work?
I imagine so. So I just wanted to be a stay-at-home mom for so many years. So I purposefully got myself out of the spotlight. And now that I'm getting back into it, I hope it does generate more work. And I am starting to work again, but I look forward to even more opportunity. And, my mother has been very supportive and generous with me and with my kids. And I'm lucky enough that she's such an amazing, generous person.
What would be your ideal job? Do you want to get back into acting? Do you want to do hosting? Do you want to do a reality show? Like, what would you want to do these days?
Well, somebody came to me recently with an idea for a reality show that I would love to do, because it's about helping others, and not the whole thing, right? Because there's going to be the fun of the family and the exciting and kind of what the audience wants to see as well. But then the heart of it, right, is me helping others, like helping another person, let's say, in the episode, to get them into treatment, convince them why it's a good idea, or help somebody who's a family member to, someone's loved one or family one, maybe convince them to go to detox, or take them to a place, or show them what I do now to stay sober, and what can maybe help them, and the routines and everything that I do, and kind of take some of these people under my wing and try to help out other people.
I love that.
But it's more complicated than just that. It's great. I mean, it was brought to me, and when I heard it, I thought that could be a great idea. Again, they said it way more eloquently than me, and they know. I'm just like kind of saying, like, I basically in the show I'd be helping others, but at the same time showing how I'm helping myself in real time, and I mean, it was really great when they pitched it to me. But I don't know, something like that would be great.
All right, my last question for you: what is the coolest thing Charlie Sheen owns or has owned?
The biggest watch collection I've ever seen in my life, especially like his Patek Philippe's. Oh, you know what? Actually, his Jaws collection.
Jaws? Like the movie?
The movie Jaws, and he had all the I don't know what you call it. When you have the fin and you have the
memorabilia. Yeah.
So he had, I would say, his Jaws collection is just incredible. And
so he has the fin. What else does he have from the movie?
Well, he doesn't have it anymore, but I can't remember everything, but he just had a room, and it was like the Jaws room, and it was probably anything you can get from Jaws that he could find, he got.
That is so cool.
So you were at, you were out in the scene, you were hanging out with people. Who was the most fun person at these parties? Which celebrity was the most fun at these parties? And I mean fun not doing drugs. They were just a good time. Everyone wanted to be around them. They were good energy, good vibes, great at partying.
I would say back in the day, Tara Reid. I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you guys know who she is, maybe.
We've had her on the podcast. We had her on a little while back. She's the best.
Yep. And so that was pretty great. And we used to have
I thought you were going to say? I thought you were going to say Paris. Paris is like one of the most fun people to hang out with at a party.
Yeah. She's pretty fun too.
How cool. Wow. Well, Brooke, I can't thank you enough. I truly appreciate your openness, your honesty. When we were sitting down, you go into an interview and you're not really sure what you're going to get out of an interview, how open someone's going to be to willing to talk about their past, or going to rehab, or getting their life healthy. And I think you blew my mind on being so open and honest. And I feel like that's really hard to do, because we've interviewed a lot of people, and I think you have been one of the most open books we've talked to so far, and I really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I wish you continued success on your sober journey. I know it's not easy, but it sounds like you're in a good path and you got good people around you. So I wish you continued success. I'm excited to see what you do next. I mean, you've been in this industry long enough. You know people. You're good at what you do. So I'm just looking forward to kind of follow along.
That's really great, and it's funny you guys said the reality show, because I think that's something. I mean, I talked to my kids about it the other day, and they were like, sure, let's do it. I mean, I've never made money off any of this. Like, I've never made a dime. And I'm like, wait a second, everyone I know is making money around me but me. And I'm like, oh, maybe it's time I capitalize on all this.
Well, what I see is someone who is open, and that's what you can ask for from a reality star or someone on TV, is that authenticness, because people catch on to that very quickly. So if you're willing to be open about your life and your kids are willing to do that, I think it could be a really, really successful reality show. So I hope, in 2 years from now, we reconnect and talk all about your reality show and how you're helping so many people on your show and saving lives. That would be really cool. Full circle moment for us.
Full circle, yeah. And thank you guys, for giving me this opportunity and your time.
All right. Well, I'm a new Brooke fan.
She's cool. She's cool. She it's just
okay. Here's a question
on someone that's in the tabloids. So I love them all that perspective. What's the question?
The question is, are the people that we have on, are they, a lot of them, open and willing to talk, or in all honesty, do we bring it out of them by making them feel comfortable? Because we've had a bunch of conversations with, like, again, Tara Reid, Brooke Hogan, Annalyn McCord, people that get so honest with us that I'm like, I'm not hearing this type of conversation in any other interviews.
I just think with a lot of these people, Tara Reid, Brooke, it's a different type of relationship we have with them because we came up with them and we did so many stories on her, but most of them, honestly, were not that great. They weren't the best of stories, and it was tough. There are difficult stories to do. I mean, that's what news is, especially in the entertainment industry. Most times you're reporting on not the best news, but in other ways, we kind of all grew up together.
But that being said, like, how many of these interviews do you feel like you go to tiptoe because you're like, man, I mean, we want to ask how it was after you got your kids taken away, or you want to ask these questions, but you're nervous. We didn't have to ask a single one of those. She came right out with that information. That is not.
I was surprised by that.
Normal.
I was like, oh,
yeah, that's not normal in a conversation with a media outlet. And that's what I loved, was that we didn't have to pry for it. She was just like, this is my life. I'm not going to hide from it. I'm going to be honest about what has happened and how it's formed who I am.
Yeah. We're just good at what we do, Dax. Just accept it, and take it for what it is. You're a good reporter. But I gotta thank Brooke again for coming on the podcast. Especially, she's been in the news a lot going on this past 2 3 weeks. You've been hearing a lot about her. So good to hear her side of it. Thank you guys for watching and for watching on Red Coral Universe. Shout out to Red Coral. It's a really great streaming site that really helps us out more than YouTube. If you want to watch on YouTube, watch on YouTube. I don't care where you watch it. Just watch us. Leave a review. Best in News supports this podcast. Check out our private Facebook group called Off the Record. It's a fun community. Follow me at Adam Glenn. Follow Dax Holt at Dax Holt. We'll see you next time.
What's up, guys? If you like that video, there's plenty more that came from. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell so we can just feed you all the goodness daily. Hurry up. Come on. Let's go.